3rd Battalion 3rd Marines, abbreviated as, is an infantry battalion of the United States Marine Corps, based out of Kāne'ohe, Hawaii. Known as either Trinity or America's Battalion, the unit falls under the command of the 3rd Marine Regiment of the 3rd Marine Division. The unit consists of approximately 800 U.S. Marines and United States Navy sailors. Like most battalions of the U.S. Marine Corps, 3rd Battalion 3rd Marines is made up of 4 rifle companies, a headquarters and services company, and a weapons company. The battalion was originally formed at Marine Corps Base Camp Lejeune, North Carolina in 1942 and saw action on both Bougainville and Guam during World War II, where it was awarded the first of its Presidential Unit citations for gallantry, determination, and esprit de corps in accomplishing its mission under extremely difficult and hazardous conditions, and the first of its Navy Unit commendations for outstanding service. Marines in the battalion were also awarded 1 Medal of Honor and 7 Navy Crosses during the war. Following World War II, 3rd Battalion was disbanded until 1951, when it was reformed in California. The battalion was alerted for possible deployment during the 1956 Suez War and the 1958 intervention in Lebanon. In 1965, the Marines of 3rd Battalion were deployed to the Vietnam War and participated in Operation Starlight, the first major Marine engagement of that conflict. The battalion continued to see major action through Vietnam and was rotated back to the United States in 1969. Famous alumni from its time in Vietnam include Corporal Robert Emmett O'Malley, the first Marine in Vietnam to be awarded the Medal of Honor, Oliver North, and John Ripley. Around the end of the Vietnam War, the battalion was deactivated for a second time in 1974. In 1975, 3rd Battalion was reformed for the third time at Marine Corps Base Hawaii. During this period, the battalion conducted numerous deployments in the Pacific and Indian Oceans. In 1983, 3rd Battalion deployed off the coast of Lebanon for several weeks during a particularly tense period in the Civil War. During the 1980s, the battalion was briefly commanded by Charles Craddock, later the 31st Commandant of the Marine Corps, who nicknamed 3rd Battalion 3rd Marines America's Battalion, because it was similar to the nickname used by the Dallas Cowboys. 3rd Battalion deployed again in 1990 as part of Operation Desert Shield and saw action at the Battle of Khafji and again during the liberation of Kuwait. In the early 21st century, the battalion deployed overseas 6 times as part of the global war on terror, 3 times for Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan and 3 times for Operation Iraqi Freedom in Iraq. 1 Marine from the battalion, Dakota Meyer, was awarded the Medal of Honor during the global war on terror organization. Like many infantry battalions in the Marine Corps, 3rd Battalion 3rd Marines consists of 5 companies, 3 rifle companies, a headquarters and service company, and a weapons company. The rifle companies are designed to act as maneuver elements for the battalion. With attachments, they can also be employed independently for short periods of time. Each rifle company ideally consists of 6 officers and 176 enlisted personnel and is typically commanded by a captain who is assisted by a first sergeant. The 3 rifle companies in 3rd Battalion have traditionally been I Company, K Company, and L Company. Because the Marine Corps uses the NATO phonetic alphabet, these companies are commonly known as India, Kilo, and Lima. Prior to 1956, under the Joint Army-Navy phonetic alphabet, they were known as Item, King, and Love. H&M S Company provides combat service support and consists of the battalion battalion staff, including the headquarters element, communications, medical, and service platoons. While not a combat unit itself, H&AMP-S provides the battalion with command and control, surveillance, target acquisition, and service support, making the battalion able to function independently without the direct involvement of a higher headquarters. Weapons Company provides fire support, coordination, medium mortars, anti-armor weapons, and heavy machine gun support for the rifle companies. Generally, these elements of Weapons Company are directly employed by the battalion, but may also be attached to the rifle companies. World War II. Formation and deployment. 3rd Battalion 3rd Marines was activated on 1 June 1942 at New River, North Carolina as the 5th Training Battalion, Division Special Troops, 1st Marine Division, Fleet in Marine Force. On 16 June, they were redesignated as the 3rd Battalion, 3rd Marines, Fleet in Marine Force. From August to September 1942, 3rd Battalion deployed with the rest of the 3rd Marine Regiment to Tutuila, American Samoa, and was reassigned to the 2nd Marine Brigade. In 1943, they were reassigned to the Fleet Marine Force. In May 1943, they redeployed to Auckland, New Zealand, and in June, were reassigned to the 3rd Marine Division. From July to August 1943, they redeployed to the island of Guadalcanal to begin training in preparation for the invasion of Bougainville in November. Bougainville. On 1 November 1943, the 3rd Battalion landed at Cape Torokina with the rest of 3rd Marines, just east of the Koromokina River. While resistance was extremely light, the rough surf and dense jungle resulted in numerous landing craft being lost or damaged beyond repair. For the next 2 weeks, the battalion helped construct a series of trails that linked the beachhead with the advancing units, and made supply much easier. On the 16th of November, the battalion reached the Numa Numa Trail and began probing for Japanese units on the 18th of November after a sharp firefight near a Japanese roadblock. The battalion recovered a Japanese map with valuable intelligence on Japanese defenses. From 19 to 21 November, 3rd Battalion continued probing for Japanese units, which had been identified as elements of the 23rd Infantry Regiment, and engaging in sporadic firefights. In the lead-up to the Battle of Beaver Forks, 3rd Battalion was able to seize critical high terrain that would give the Marines the advantage in the upcoming fight. The actual battle from 22 to 26 November saw some of the most vicious close combat experienced in the Pacific War as of that date. 3rd Battalion additionally suffered many casualties from unusually accurate Japanese mortar and artillery fire. 2 days later, after 27 days of continuous action, 3rd Battalion was moved to a relatively quiet sector on the 3rd Division's flank where it remained for the remainder of the operation. In December, the 3rd Marine Division was relieved by the Army's American Division, and 3rd Battalion left Bougainville for Guadalcanal on Christmas Day, 1943 with the rest of the division. They left behind 36 of their comrades, including Corporal John Logan, Jr., and Captain Robert Turnbull, who were both awarded Navy Crosses during the Battle of Beaver Forks. 165 other Marines from 3rd Battalion became casualties during the campaign. After Bougainville, 3rd Battalion conducted numerous training exercises on Guadalcanal from January to May 1944 in preparation for the invasion of Cavite in April, and the Marianas in June. while 3rd Marines was designated as the floating reserve for the initial invasion of Saipan. They were ultimately not landed and returned to Eniwetok for a 3-week stay prior to the invasion of Guam. During the interlude, the Marines of 3rd Battalion were primarily confined to the transport ship, the Uswaran, Guam on the 21st of July 1944. Around 0830, 3rd Battalion hit the Asan beaches on Guam, landing on the extreme left of the entire 3rd Marine Division. The mission was to take Chonito Cliff and Adelup Point, which marked the left flank of the division. Within minutes, the Japanese defenders opened up with mortars and machine guns, hitting many 3rd Battalion Marines coming ashore. By 0912, Battalion Commander Lieutenant Colonel Ralph Hauser reported many casualties caused by both mortars and sniper fire. Both Kilo and India companies rushed the Chonito Cliffs, but the Japanese defenders resisted strongly, in some cases rolling grenades down the hillside, supported by flamethrowers, half-tracks, and armor from the 3rd Tank Battalion. 3rd Battalion fought a bloody 3-hour battle up the side of Chonito Cliff. Hauser then ordered Lima Company to flank the cliffs to the north by dashing down an exposed beach road. Having secured Chonito Cliff, the battalion then moved on to Adelup Point. The U.S. Navy sent a destroyer to blast the Japanese caves at point-blank range, and 3rd Battalion flamethrowers burned out Japanese soldiers who still remained. After securing Adelup Point, 3rd Battalion finished the day providing flank security for the rest of the 3rd Marines during the battle for Bundschu Ridge, and became the only unit in the regiment to accomplish its objectives by the end of W-Day. The first night of 21-22 July, the Marines of 3rd Battalion came under a concerted counterattack by the survivors of the Japanese 320th Independent Infantry Battalion, as well as the 319th, committed by Japanese Commander General Kiyoshi Shigematsu to retake the Chonito Cliffs. The Japanese managed to infiltrate past many 3rd Battalion units through ravines and dry riverbeds and briefly threatened to overrun the battalion command post. The fighting was so heavy that parts of the division reserve were committed, and the destroyer Usmaki was unable to provide close fire support, as the Japanese and Marines were so closely intermingled. However, the Marines held firm and managed to repulse the attack by 0830. During the counterattack, a mortarman with Keeler Company, Private First Class Luther Skaggs, Jr., was critically wounded in the leg by a Japanese grenade. After applying a tourniquet, Skaggs continued to fight for another 8 hours before moving unassisted to the rear, where most of his leg was amputated. For this he became the first Marine from 3rd Battalion to be awarded the Medal of Honor. Over the next 2 days, the 3rd Battalion fought a savage battle with the Japanese defenders for the Chonito Cliffs and Fonte Plateau area, as the battalion struggled to capture the Mount Tenjo Road. On the 23rd of July, 3rd Battalion seized the last ridge leading to the Fonte Plateau, provoking a heavy Japanese counterattack. LTCOL Hauser himself was seriously wounded in this engagement, and the executive officer, Major Royal Bastian, took command. Then 3rd Battalion, now reinforced with tanks, took part in the assault on the Fonte Plateau on the 25th of July, seizing the key position after just an hour of fighting. The night of 25-26 July saw the climax of the fighting on Guam when the Japanese launched an all-out counterattack against the Americans. In the 3rd Battalion sector, Japanese sailors of the 54th Kaibatai launched a series of failed attacks against the now well-defended Marine positions. Backed up with artillery, the Marines easily repulsed the Japanese. On the morning of the 31st of July, 3rd Battalion proceeded east on the Mount Tenjo Road towards the island capital of Agana, which it liberated the same day after token resistance. By 10:45, 15 minutes after its platoons entered the city, 3rd Battalion had reached the central plaza and stopped at the northern outskirts by noon, resuming the offensive at 15:45. 3rd Battalion pushed forward 1,500 yards to seize key road junctions that led to the towns of Fingayan and Barrigada. For the remaining 10 days of the campaign, the battalion marched northeast up the coast, encountering occasional Japanese resistance, until the island was declared secure on the 10th of August. However, the Japanese were not totally defeated. On the 7th of August, as 3rd Battalion led the regimental advance towards Road Junction 460, Japanese artillery shells began landing among the advancing Marines. After Marines discovered the source of fire, a 75mm artillery piece, the Japanese fled. The final action by 3rd Battalion during the campaign was on the 9th of August, when a nearby battalion came under heavy Japanese tank and infantry attack. Blazing a trail through the jungle, 3rd Battalion rushed towards the action, but the Japanese tanks vanished before the battalion could arrive. Casualties from the 3rd Battalion were twice that of Bougainville, with 300 wounded and 97 killed. Iwo Jima and Japan. Following the invasion of Guam, 3rd Battalion spent 2 months conducting mopping-up operations on the island until November, when it received orders to prepare for operations against Iwo Jima. From November until February 1945, they took part in a training regiment so serious that a fellow battalion later reported at least 20% of its members were incapacitated due to foot and heat injuries. During the Battle of Iwo Jima, 3rd Battalion, as part of 3rd Marines, was kept offshore as the Expeditionary Troops Reserve. However, despite numerous requests from other Marine officers, the 3rd Marines were never landed. After sitting off Iwo Jima in the transport ships for a month, the 3rd Marines were ordered to return to Guam on the 5th of March 1945. Back on Guam, 3rd Battalion began training for a landing on Miyako-jima, an island just south of Okinawa. Those orders were eventually cancelled, but the battalion still saw minor combat in 1945, participating in 2 operations on Guam designed to capture Japanese soldiers still holding out in the hills. These sweeps took place in April and December 1945. 3rd Battalion also began preparing for Operation Olympic, where as part of 5th Amphibious Corps, it would have landed at Kushiki no Kagoshima on Kyushu. After the dropping of the atomic bombs in August 1945 and Japan's surrender, 3rd Battalion was detached from the 3rd Marine Division in November 1945 and deactivated the following month on the 12th of December 1945. Shortly before it was deactivated, however, 3rd Battalion suffered the dubious honor of having the last American killed in World War II, when PFCW. C. Patrick Bates of Kilo Company was shot by a Japanese sniper on the 14th of December during a mopping-up operation on Guam. Early Cold War, 3rd Battalion 3rd Marines was reactivated at Marine Corps Base Camp Pendleton in August 1951 as part of the 3rd Marine Brigade. In February 1952, it took part in Lex Baker 1, which was the first full-scale Marine Navy exercise held on the West Coast since 1949. In May, India Company participated in the ground portion of the Operation Buster Jangle atomic bomb tests in Nevada. In August, part of the battalion took part in an amphibious landing on Lake Washington as part of Seattle's Seafair. Then in December, 3rd Battalion took part in one of the first exercises at 29 Palms, California. The entire 3rd Marine Division, including 3rd Battalion 3rd Marines, was transported more than 280 miles by truck between MCB Camp Pendleton and 29 Palms. During the exercise, 3rd Battalion made a night airlift using over 60 helicopters. In January 1953, the unit deployed to the Marine Corps Air Station Kāne'ohe Bay on Oahu for 6 months of training, after which 3rd Battalion 3rd Marines returned to Pendleton. In August 1953, 3rd Battalion deployed to Japan for training operations at Kin Beach, Okinawa and Iwo Jima. In October 1956, 3rd Battalion was stationed in Japan when the Suez Crisis broke out. Though initially deployed to the Indian Ocean for possible action in Egypt and the surrounding region, the crisis was ultimately resolved. During this cruise, 3rd Battalion, designated Battalion Landing Team 3/3, visited Brunei Bay, Bombay, Karachi, and Singapore, before returning to Japan. In December 1956, the entire 3rd Marine Regiment was deployed off of Indonesia because of civil strife in that country. In 1958, 3rd Battalion was alerted for possible deployment to Lebanon, but its transports were turned back in the Indian Ocean to Okinawa. 4 years later, in 1962, the battalion deployed on the Bay field to the Chinese coast to guard the Taiwanese islands of Quemoy Matsu.